Hello everyone. Welcome to Module 1, Basics of Measurements. We are going to start by going through Module 2.1, Scientific Notation and Units. Module 1 is going to be broken up into several chunks, 3 chunks, 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. Because we have a lot of material that we need to cover before the first actual hands-on lab during the second week of the semester. So you will start out watching, going through this PowerPoint and doing the activities here, but make sure to also do the ones for 2.2 and 2.3. Okay, so the learning objectives for this section of the module are shown here. So we need to write numbers in scientific notation, and we need to be able to use the SI prefix system. So I'll go ahead and read these, and you can read along on your screens. Write very large or very small numbers in scientific notation, and perform calculations with excuse me, with your calculator using scientific notation. And then the second one, memorize the numerical meaning of each of the following SI prefixes, as well as the corresponding one-letter abbreviation: kilo, centa, milli, micro, nano. Be able to convert from a base unit, such as meter, gram, etc., to a measurement using one of these prefixes or vice versa. So these are the things we're going to cover in this first module. Okay, the basis of this entire module is the idea of a measurement. Every measurement needs to have 3 parts. Each part is very important. We need to have a number, we need to have a unit, and we need to have significant figures. Significant figures will be in the second video, so we're not going to talk about that today. We will talk about the units, however. The number is pretty straightforward. Usually people get that part. It's the other two that we need to talk about a little bit. So we'll be talking about the units in this presentation. Before we get into too much detail on this, I want to talk a little bit about scientific notation. As it turns out, understanding scientific notation will be very important to understanding the types of units we'll be using. Scientific notation is very useful when we have either very large or very small numbers. It makes everything a lot more clear. For example, the width of a human hair is 0.000008 meters. Now, if you needed to write that down, it would be possibly difficult to remember how many zeros you had. So we instead write it like this: 8 times 10 to the minus 6 meters. So that's another way to write that, where we don't have to count the zeros, we just have to get these numbers right. Another example is the diameter of the Earth. This is a very large number, which is 128000000. Again, you could very easily miss one of those zeros, so we write it as 1.28 times 10 to the 7th. So we can see how these numbers might be more easy to deal with than these numbers, and we want to make sure we can get from these sorts of numbers to these sorts of numbers, and that's what we're going to talk about next. To write a number in scientific notation, we need to write it as a coefficient and a power of 10. So there are 2 parts to scientific notation. The coefficient needs to be a number between 1 and 10. And the power of 10 is just a number, just times 10 raised to some number. In order to change a number to scientific notation, we essentially are moving the decimal point. So let's look at some examples of that. Here we have 64,000, and if we write that in scientific notation, we move the decimal point 1, 2, 3, 4 places. So the power is then the number of places that we move that decimal point. So we write this as 6.4 times 10 to the 4th, because we moved it 4 decimal places. Here's another example, 0.00345. If we move that 1 to 3 decimal places, we get 3.45 times 10 to the minus third. Now, how do you know if you have a positive or negative power of 10? You could think of that in terms of, do you go right or do you go left, as the PowerPoint is saying. I like to think about it in terms of, if you have a big number, it's positive, so big number positive. If you have a small number, it's negative. So those are 2 ways to know how to get your power of 10 correct for that. It's also very important that your calculator can perform operations in scientific notation. You will be using your calculator throughout the semester. You want to make sure it's doing what you want it to. There is one button on your calculator that does what we want, and that's this one button that shows it in scientific notation. Now, there are lots of brands of calculators, and they all have a different way of showing this button. So you want to find which one of these you have, either EE, EX, or EXP, whichever one is showing up on your calculator. Some calculators might have it as a second function. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I do this on a calculator I have, and then you can just make sure you can do it on your calculator. So we're going to be putting this number into the calculator in scientific notation. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So we want to do 3.598 times 10 to the minus 8. I'm going to redo this. So 3.598, and then we want to put this in scientific notation. There's one button for that. It's this button right here. So on this calculator, it's the EE button. Again, it could be EX or EXP on your calculator. And then that button is saying times 10 raised to a power, and then we put -8, and that's it. We've put that number in scientific notation into our calculator. So you want to make sure that you can do that on your calculator before coming to lab during the second week of the semester, and you'll have a chance to practice this on the worksheet. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about units. In the United States, we use the English system. The rest of the world uses the SI system. So we want to learn the SI system because this is also the system that scientists use. And it's a system we'll be using in this course. When we measure something, we want to just be aware of what we're measuring. And there's 4 kind of base units that we'll start off with. We'll introduce additional things we can measure in the second later in the module. But for now, we're going to start with these 4. So if we measure length in the SI system, we would use the meter. If we measure mass, we would use the kilogram. If we measure time, we would use second. If we measure temperature, we would use Kelvin. Okay, so these are the base units. So you want to be able to, if you see a measurement, see the units, and it could be the word or it could be the abbreviated letter or 2 letters, know what that is measuring. Part of the reason why we like the SI system is we can use prefixes to modify a measurement to a much larger or a much smaller number. This is actually very much the same thing as we do with scientific notation. So a prefix is telling you something about changing that number. So for example, the prefix kilo means 1,000. So if we have 1 kilometer, we have 1,000 meters. The prefix is changing the measurement. The prefix means some sort of numerical value. We can write equalities based on relating a number with a prefix to a number without a prefix, and we're showing these here. And we can use these equalities to go from one measurement to another, as we will see. Okay, so we can see 1 meter equals 100 centimeters, 1 meter equals 1,000 millimeters, etc. Okay, these equalities are based on what the meaning of these prefixes are. So I want to look at this table. This is a table from your book. There are lots of prefixes here for going from trillions to quadrillions. So we have a scale of 10 to the 27th of prefixes. Now we don't need all of these for chemistry. We're just going to look at a handful, and the ones that we are going to care about are the ones in these red boxes. So we've talked a little bit about kilo already. Kilo means 1,000. So when we see the symbol K in front of a measurement, it means we have 1,000 of whatever that is. So kilogram is 1,000 grams, for example. So the multiplier here we're showing is 1,000. In scientific notation, we're showing what that would be as well, 10 to the third. So we have one kind of bigger measurement, but most of them are smaller. So centa, milli, micro, nano. So centa means 1/100th, so that's 100 times smaller. It means 10 to the minus 2. Okay, so in scientific notation, milli means 10 to the minus 3. From there, we're going to go down by a factor of 3 each time. So the next lowest one is micro. This symbol is the Greek letter mu that we use for micro. It looks kind of like a U with a funny front foot on it. This means 10 to the minus 6. Nano means 10 to the minus 9. Okay, so we're getting smaller and smaller. So you want to know these 5. Some of these other ones you might be familiar with, but they are not important for you to know for this class. Okay, so what we want to do, we want to get some practice with these units, with converting these units. So go ahead and take a minute, see if you can convert each of these to the given base unit. So you're going from something with a prefix to something without a prefix. Feel free to pause the recording, do the calculation, and then when you come back, we'll see what the answer is. Okay, so here are the answers. So 2 kilometers is the same as 2,000 meters, or we could write it in scientific notation as 2 times 10 to the third meters. So what we're doing there, we see the kilo means 1,000, so we multiply it by 1,000 to get the 2,000 meters. 1,500 milligrams is equal to 1.5 grams. What we see there is the milligrams means 10 to the minus third, so we are multiplying that by 10 to the minus third. Or you could be thinking of it as moving the decimal place 3 places. The last one, 6 centimeters equals 0.06 meters. Centa means 10 to the minus 2, so we're moving that decimal place over 2 places. Make sure you feel comfortable with these 3 before moving on to getting some more practice. Okay, so that's it. That is our first segment of Module 1. So what do we do now? Go ahead and get practice with these ideas. These are very important ideas that will continue to come up throughout the semester. So you should find on Canvas worksheet 2.1, complete that worksheet. If you have questions about the worksheet, feel free to ask those on the discussion board, and other students might chime in, or you can compare answers as well. Would be one way you could do that. When you feel you've mastered the material on this worksheet, go ahead and proceed to the presentation for Module 2.2. That's it for now. I will see you in Module 2.2.